This is a podcast about one woman's mission to help entrepreneurs and business owners write better business books. Each week, we tackle your writing excuses, because there are excuses too, and help you beat the blank page of doom so that you can write the book that'll grow your life and your business. Now here's your host, Vicky Fraser.
Hello and welcome to the 1000 Authors Show. I'm Vicky Fraser, and today I'm delighted to welcome Laura Belgray from Talking Shrimp onto the show. Laura, thank you so much for joining us.
Vicky, I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. So I always start with what we're reading. So what are you reading at the moment, Laura? What have you just finished reading?
Well, I've been having trouble reading, but such trouble like this year. No, in general, I'm just so distractible. But I did so when a book keeps my interest through the whole book, when I actually finish it, it's a good book. So I just finally finished a book called Leave the World Behind. It's a new novel. I shouldn't say finally. I finished it very quickly. I just mean finally found a book that I could read and finish. And so that's a novel that came out recently, and I bought it like the day it came out because it looked so good, and it was.
Okay, thank you for that. What's it about?
It is about a family, couple who rented like an Airbnb place for the week during the summer in a place that I think is supposed to be the Hamptons, and then it becomes an apocalyptic like disaster novel. They end up. Like the owners end up showing up in the middle of the night and say there's a blackout in the city and they need to stay there, and everybody's pissed because they've rented the place. And then it turns out that like there's a huge world disaster, and it's a funny time to read a book like that. And I don't know what drew me to it, but yeah.
Sounds like it's right up my street. I was a massive fan of The Walking Dead, so I'm definitely going to be searching that book.
Yeah, it's really good, and it just is also a little bit of a comedy of manners, just kind of making fun of poking fun a little bit at the kind of the foods that they stock up on and the calls that they have with work and all those kinds of things. So it's a little bit of a modern day satire as well.
Oh, brilliant. That sounds perfect. Thank you for that recommendation. I will dig that out and have a read. Okay, so down to business then. I've been following you for so long, and like it says on your website, yours are some of the only emails that I read every day, because they're really funny and because they're really smart, and you have been a big part of helping me to become a better writer. So thank you for that. And I just wanted to ask about where you started, because it's kind of unusual. And so can you tell us a bit about when you started writing and what you did and how that's helped you to be good at what you do now?
Yeah, well, thank you for the kind words. I guess I started writing professionally when I guess as a copywriter, when I started working at Spy magazine. First of all, I had an internship at Spy back in the 90s, and I was a terrible intern. I couldn't come up with any ideas. I realized I don't want to be a journalist. I thought I wanted to do something in magazines, but I was terrible, like just the worst intern, no ideas, no initiative. But I got lucky and got hired on the ad side when my internship was up, because they liked me. We were all on the same floor and I had friends over there, and I started doing some copy. They had me do a quiz called, it was a quiz for doers. It was an advertorial, meaning it looked like part of the magazine, but it was an ad. And it was a quiz called, Do You Party Like Uncle Marty? And it was a quiz to find out whether you were a geezer or like a cool young thing. And if you were a geezer, then it was time to liven up your life with some doers, I guess. So that started my copy career. I started doing ad copy for them and then for New York Magazine, and then found out that there was this job called promo writing. I didn't know what promos were, but a friend of mine from Spy was at VH1 writing promos, and I had lunch with him one day, and I was like, what are promos? And he said, well, I watch a lot of TV, and then I write the little things that go in, like during the commercials that are for the shows, that advertise the shows and tell you to tune in. I was like, oh my God, that's a job. I need that job. And so he set me up with an interview there, and the woman who was in charge of VH1 hired me to write a promo. And that is where I started my official professional writing career. However, I wasn't doing promos were a dream job for me. And I did them for many years. And I worked at Nick at Night. Nick at Night was the ultimate place for promos. Like I watched their promos at home before I even knew what promos were, and had thought, I want to write those. And so I got a job there and was there, and their spinoff channel, TV Land, for years and years and years. Truly decades. Mm-hmm. And started getting antsy towards the end because I loved writing promos, but I still felt like I wasn't writing anything in my voice.
Right.
Like I really wanted to write, I don't know, I didn't know the word for it, but I guess I wanted to write prose. Okay. And then I started a website I incorporated, my husband and I incorporated, it was just advice of our tax accountant. Basically, he said, pick a name, preferably something that with an available URL, and I'll incorporate you to save you taxes. And so we picked Talking Shrimp for no reason really whatsoever, except the domain was available and it could mean anything or nothing and apply to either of us. And it was just going to be to host my promos reel so that I could get more clients in promos, like freelance work. And my friend Marie Forleo said, you're going to put a blog on your site, right? And I was like, well, isn't it too late to start blogging? And because it was 2009, I thought it was too late. Yeah. She's like, no, you moron. Of course not. You have to have a blog. And so I put a blog on there, and she also told me to put in, an opt-in on the site. And I was like, a what in? And she explained how an opt-in works and how you have an email list and people sign up for it, et cetera, et cetera. So I did that. I wasn't sure to what end, but because she told me to. And so I started building an email list and blogging and sending them notification when there was a new blog post. And that's really how I started writing the kind of writing I always wanted to do. I didn't want to write a book because I didn't know what to write about. I mean, I did. There were times when I wanted to write a book, and I actually started one like back in 2001 or 2002, but it never finished. It never went anywhere because I didn't know how to end it, basically. But it wasn't until I started blogging and writing these emails that I found a home for the kind of writing that I wanted to do.
Okay. And so we're going to come back to the book in a moment because obviously that's what, that's something that I'm incredibly interested in. But when you say that because I know that you talk about the type of writing that you really wanted to do, and then you talk also about being paid to be you. So can you tell us a little bit about how you made that work for you, and what was so important to you about writing for yourself and that kind of transition that you made?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so I did segue from promos like into writing for private clients, doing copywriting in the entrepreneur space and, digital marketing and all that. And at some point, so I guess there are a couple of different stories here, different layers to it. But I will say that I ended up working with Marie Forleo and a lot of other superstars online. And people thought of me for a while and still do often, as Marie Forleo's copywriter, would refer to me as Marie Forleo's copywriter, which is a misconception anyway, because she has always written her own copy. We co-wrote things together. We co-scripted her Marie TV episodes together and created this program, The Copy Cure, together. But I was always kind of like the person behind the person, or the voice behind the voice. And in many ways, that was very cool and a great credit and honor to be Marie Forleo's copywriter, thought of that way. Or, this is Laura, she writes for Bravo, or she writes for SpongeBob, all very cool stuff. At some point, I realized, this was a few years ago, I didn't want to be known as so-and-so's copywriter or anybody's anything. I wanted to be known as Laura fucking Belgray. I wanted to be known for my words. I wanted to be known for me, for my brand. And so I set about really becoming the face of my brand and making it about me, not a blank canvas that showed that I could write in your voice or anybody's voice. But and at the same time, ended up retiring from copywriting for private clients because I wanted to use my copywriting and my writing for myself and sell my own stuff and use it to express me and my voice. And so that's what I ended up doing. And I ended up, creating products that I could sell myself instead of other people's stuff, and getting more visible, writing guest posts for different media outlets like Business Insider, et cetera, going on podcasts like this one, and making it, letting people know who I was.
Why was that so important to you? I get that, you want to sell your own products. Obviously, that's really cool, and I know that they've done really, really well for you. But what was really so important to you about getting your voice out there?
Because for one thing, I am a communicator. I like to express myself, and that's why I like to write. I mean, that's part of why I like to write. That's the joy of it. So I wanted to express myself instead of expressing somebody else all the time. And copywriting was wonderful, but this is, I arrived at this thing where I was like, I want to be, sometimes I'd write like smart quotes for somebody else and be like, you know what? That's something I just made up. I want my name attached to it. I want the credit for that. And so why it's so important to be known, to get known and put yourself out there, is because you can't get paid to be you unless people know who you are. And so once they understand who you are and have sort of an image of you, through your branding, through the things that you say, through, interviews and your output, your posts and your writing and all of that, then you become a go-to. They think, oh, I want to learn, I want to buy from that person. Even if everybody's doing the same thing, I want it from her, or I want it from him, because they feel like they know you. And that's, know, like, and trust is the way people buy. That's what gets people to buy. And so when they feel like they know, like, and trust you, which is something that you achieve, that's a connection that you achieve by putting yourself out there and expressing yourself and being prolific and creative. Once you establish that connection, that's when they buy for you. And that is when you are getting paid to be yourself.
Which is such a cool place to be. And so what would you say to, because one of the objections that I've heard a lot from people is, oh, well, people might not like me, and what if I offend people, and how much do I put out there of myself? Because you tell some hilarious stories, and some very personal stories as well. So how do you learn to, draw that, like, where do you draw the line, and how do you learn to put out just the right amount of you? And how would you encourage other people to do the same and be a bit less scared of it? Well,
I am a fan of TMI, and the TM in that, too much. When you say, how do you do it without doing it, without putting out too much? I am all for it. I am pro too much. So I think that's
hilarious to me, because I never read your stuff and think, whoa, that's too much information. I always read it and I think, fucking yes, I love this.
Thank you. Exactly. So I don't really pull back anywhere. I share what I want to share, and there are things that I don't share, and because I don't want to. Sure. And I think that that's fine. I think that's where you draw the line. Like, I don't need for anyone to know that about me. I don't need anybody in my, I talk about my relationship with my husband all the time. I don't need to bring the world into the bedroom with us. That's not something that's not stuff that I share. There's plenty that I don't share about that, but I share a lot about our conversations during the day. I share my insecurities in life. I share, the kind of pants that I wear, all kinds of personal things.
I love that email about your pants. Because I was like, I'm living in the world's most comfortable pants these days.
Thank you. So yeah, I don't think that there is a too much if you're comfortable sharing it about yourself. And I don't mean comfortable in that you are sure that everybody will like it. Mm-hmm. I mean comfortable in that, you would share it with your friends. And it doesn't have to be only your best friend. I mean, if you were at a cocktail party of people you're comfortable with, would you talk about this? And if it's too intimate and too personal, then no, then don't share it. You don't have to. But but if it's oh, I'm afraid this will turn some people off, not someone's going to be mad at me for this. Like, oh, I don't want to talk about how much I love chicken because then the vegans will be upset that I talked about chicken. I mean, if you have a vegan business, then yeah, don't talk about chicken. But otherwise, like, who cares if vegans get mad at you? Everybody's out there looking to get offended.
Yeah.
And they can, and they're welcome to get offended and go away.
They are, yeah. I guess it's like I always think of it as a self-cleaning mechanism that they show themselves out. So do you find, because I know you've talked about this recently in your emails, but do you get a lot of trolls? And how do you deal with that? Because I know that's something that I've spoken to people and it worries them. It's like, oh, what if I get awful emails from people? So how do you deal with that if it happens to you?
I really don't get a lot of trolls. Once in a while, like in the past, we were we're in November, so it's just a few weeks ago that the election happened, and this is still happening. My God! But that's when I got some trolls, and it's not to my emails really. I think most of those people, if I wrote anything in my email about it, they would just show themselves out and quietly unsubscribe. On Instagram, there were people who started coming around. The trolls come around for some reason slowly, like they discover your posts like a week later. It's like flies on a rotting carcass. As soon as it starts to rot, then they're interested. So like it's once it's like 8 days old, I'm start getting comments about how the election is a farce and a fraud. And I'm like, where did you even come from? They just released the bots or something from the high. Political stuff I have gotten trolled for, but usually I don't get trolled the way I think I will, even when I share numbers, because sometimes it behooves me to share income numbers. If I'm selling something, if I'm promoting something that will help people make money. So when I do that, I'm always afraid that people are going to troll me and say, like, prove it, show us your bank account, or how much of that is profit, or I don't know, or just say you're being tone deaf. Once in a while, I've gotten people saying tone deaf, especially when, like at the beginning of the pandemic, and I was talking about my new house. And but that's pretty much the limit of it. I get fewer trolls than you would think. I don't say anything that polarizing or abrasive.
No, I suppose you don't really. I mean, I get the political stuff because, of course, that's always incredibly polarizing. But I actually think it's really cool. I really like seeing, because you do this. Hillary Weiss has done it recently as well. And I really like it when people share their income numbers, because it shows us what's possible. Because you're not Oprah Winfrey. You're not so far ahead of us that we can't imagine being there.
Right.
So it's really nice to see that. And I also think it's super important because there's this, certainly in the UK, there's this like, oh, we don't talk about wages. And that keeps certain groups down. And I'm like, you know what? That's bullshit. So I really like to see people, especially women, sharing their numbers. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thank you. I'm with you on that. I agree. I mean, sometimes it's a little cringy to me when I'm doing it. I'm just like, I guess I think of my mother. Like my mother was, brought up not to show up, not to be ostentatious. And she doesn't like public conversations about money when I'm sharing numbers like that. But most people respond really positively to it in general. I'm always nervous that they'll want things from me or be like, why do you need to sell that? If you made so much money, why do you need to keep selling? Why aren't you retired? I'm like, it's not that much money.
Yeah.
People have a misconception. And yeah, it's just showing people what's possible.
Yeah. And it's also kind of, I guess, I don't know, for me, it's like, it's not, the money is like, one of my old mentors put it, the silent applause. And it's like, of course you need to make money, but it's not, that's not necessarily the reason for doing it. Anyway, I'm kind of babbling, but one of the things that is leading on to is that one of my favorite articles of yours is where you talked about your first million and how it's better when you wait. Could you just really briefly talk about that a bit? Because that made my day when I read that, because I think I had just turned 40 and I was just like, because I was like, I've left it too late and blah, blah, blah. And I'm never going to be all those things that go through your head. And I read your article and I was like, well, that's cool. So could you talk a little bit about that? Because that was just brilliant. I loved it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the title of the article was "I Made My First Million at 50," and let me tell you, it's better when you wait. So I think that that number 50 gave gave a lot of people a reason to breathe a sigh of relief, because many people are younger than me. They're like, "Oh, thank goodness, I have like I've got 10 years." But again, like, it wasn't a marker of like, this is the year when you do it. And if you haven't done it by now, then you're too late. The message was really, it's like that can, hitting the milestones that people expect you to hit, or that people make it look like they're hitting way earlier than you. Like it just, I'm not sure where that sentence was going, but just that not all of us hit those milestones at the pace that everybody thinks we should, or we think we should, or what people make it look like is possible. And we're in this culture of the, a youth culture and a culture of Silicon Valley, like, college dropouts making billions, and influencers, like people with so much college, and they're practically like covering an extra layer of it. Getting deals on Instagram, getting free lipstick and free, hotel stays and free everything, and getting these vague influencer deals. And it makes us feel like, oh my God, I'm so behind. Like, these people are moguls, and they've barely learned to walk. And here I am, like, still trying to figure out who I am. So I think that piece was a big relief to people, because I embrace being a late bloomer. Mm-hmm. And I think I talked about many of the ways in which I am a late bloomer. And I think I continue to be. I'm just slow on the uptake. I'm slow to try the things and do the things and hit the marks that people expect earlier in adulthood from a person.
And that's what made it so great. And I'm going to put the link to that article in the show notes, because everybody should read it. But that was one of the things that I love so much about it, because I think we hear a lot about the people who know from like the age of 4 that they're going to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. And then there's like the rest of us who are like, I'm 40 and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And it was like you said, it was a relief to read it. And also it was refreshingly honest, because we're surrounded by these people who are like, I'm making £1 million. And it's like, well, are you really, really? And so to hear that, it took you longer, and that was a good thing, was just wonderful. So thank you for writing it, and thank you for sharing that. That was fab.
Thank you.
But I could ask you so many questions and just go on all day, but we're going to have to, 2 things that I want to ask you about. First of all, being funny, because one of the things that I just dug out of my hard drive that I haven't read for a little while, and I've just reread again, is your passive aggressive ebook, which is hilarious. Why did you write that? And just the being funny thing is just brilliant. So could you tell us a bit about that?
Thank you. You're digging so far in the crates, which I love. So, I mean, back when I was first blogging, which I mentioned, like 2009, 2010, and for a while, I was just writing whatever I wanted to write about, and had nothing to do with copywriting, nothing to do with business. And I refused to write anything relevant to my business, really. I was just blogging in the old school form of it. And I wrote, one of my blog posts was a guide to passive aggressive speak. It was like, it was translations of all different passive aggressive sayings and what they really mean, like what kind of like along the lines of, Key and Peele. There's a sketch where he does, I think it's Key, who plays Obama's anger translator back during the Obama administration, because Obama was so like nice and polite, and he was like, no, man, this is what he's saying. So anyway, I digress. So it was just a blog post, and for some reason, like, I'm so bad at SEO that was the thing that got the most hits of any search, any keyword search. So, and nothing on my site got more hits than that. Every day people were coming to my site looking, like, having Googled passive aggressive examples. And that was number 1. I think number 2 was the keyword phrase, make slave eat toenail clippings. So I don't remember even what that was from. Like, some blog posts talk about sex slaves and toenail clippings. But
Right.
Which is not in my wheelhouse, by the way. I don't for some joke. But anyway, I was getting so many such SEO juice from that I decided, what if I turned it into gated content and charged $10 for it, which was a nice passive aggressive price, I thought. And I put up a pretty passive aggressive little sales page for it and started and uploaded it to Gumroad, I think, and started charging for it. And so occasionally I would make $10, which was really nice. I mean, and I think that might have been, I would say my first, dollar earned online, like from a stranger while I slept, was for my for my 60-minute makeovers copywriting mini product, which I have on my site right now. But in truth, it was from my passive aggressive handbook.
Which is just the perfect example of how if you can make people laugh, they will buy stuff from you.
Yes, that's true. Although, I have to say, I think a lot of people bought it because they thought it was a serious psychology handbook or something, like a DSM. I don't know what.
Well,
they were looking for some way to speak to their like passive aggressive partner or something.
Well, it's useful for that as well, I guess. So.
Yeah, and there were no refunds, so I wouldn't know.
Awesome. Okay, thank you for sharing that. But on to exciting things. So your book, you announced the other day on Instagram and probably elsewhere too, but I saw it on Instagram, that you have a book deal with the best title of a book I've seen in a long time, which is so exciting. So can you tell us a little bit about the book? Tell us the title, tell us why you're writing it and how it's going.
Thank you. Well, I guess you just want to hear me say tough titties.
Yeah,
that's the title of the book. Tough Titties is coming out via Hachette Books in summer 2022, and just got the book deal this October. And it's something that I've been working towards for a couple of years now. I really started writing the book in earnest, like cranking away. I say in 2019 is when I did the bulk of the work, like wrote a whole lot of chapters. It is a memoir, and I would call it a coming of age story set in New York that gives you permission to live your best life, even if you're the fucking worst.
Amazing.
So that's pretty much what it is. It's essays. I guess it is officially memoir. But so I was writing chapters, not really even sure where it was going for quite a while. I was just kind of writing all the stories that I've always wanted to tell that have no call to action, nothing to do with copywriting, nothing to do with business necessarily. And then had to figure out, like, what is this book? How do I position it? How do I sell it? And put together a proposal to that end this past year, and started going out to agents, and then found an agent, and they sold it this fall.
That is so cool. And I'm indie publishing, so I love hearing about traditional publishing stories. And so it's really exciting to me that you kind of got this book deal. So what was that process like?
Well, which process?
The kind of the finding an agent, the selling the book. How did you go about finding an agent, and what was the?
Yeah,
I know that a book proposal is a hell of a thing to write. So
it is. It was it was a beast to write. And looking back at it, like reading through my own proposal, I'm like, holy shit! I can't believe that I wrote this, because it is kind of a beast. Mm-hmm. And had I think it's one of those things that you have to approach section by section. It's like, okay, I can do this section, and you have to have a model for it. Like somebody else's proposal comes in, that's similar, will come in really handy. And I had this person helping me, Suzanne Kingsbury, who's wonderful. She has a method and program and academy all called Gateless Writing. And she helped me with the writing, helped me get some of the chapters, like the best chapters in shape to be sample chapters in the proposal, and, provided me with a great model for the proposal and helped me shape mine so that it would interest an agent. And then she also helped me figure out because she knows the industry, which agents I should query first. And so we made a list of them in a Google Doc, and I started and she showed me a model query letter, which was also necessary. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have known, how to shape it at all without that template. So I started just sending it out, querying those agents. I didn't just do it like formulaically. It was mostly formulaic, but I did before I sent it to any agent, I looked them up on Twitter, on Instagram, wherever they were, and found any kind of little in-joke that I could make or talk about something that they had just published or whatever it was. Twitter usually gave me the best ideas for that, but I always added some sort of personal touch. And I got a bunch of rejections off the bat, and they were very nice rejections. Like one, a couple of them were glowing rejections. I started to recognize that some of that was just sort of copy paste stuff that they do that, lots to love here. Love this, love that. But ultimately we might not be the best reader for this or the best agent for it. So, but they were, specific enough to be encouraging. Like I know I wasn't just being thrown into a pile. So I guess a good handful of encouraging rejections. And then one agent got back to me and said, "Are you free to talk this week?" And I said, yes. And we, made a time to talk. She wasn't the agent I was expecting. I didn't think she didn't really have stuff in her stable that was the kind of writing I wanted to do. But when she showed interest, I was interested in her, and we had a great conversation. And I made her promise, we had the first conversation and then another one later when she made me the offer. And I made her promise that she would not sell my book to anyone who wanted it to be something different, meaning I didn't want to write a how-to. Mm-hmm. I wanted to write memoir. I wanted to write personal essays. So I did not want the book to be an instructional, prescriptive how-to book with sidebars and your next steps or any of that stuff, or spoon-fed takeaways at the end of each chapter. I was like, absolutely not. That's not what I want to do. That's what I do in my, that's what I do for money. That's what I do in my emails and blog posts and stuff. And I wanted this to be like my pure writing. So she promised me that. And she went out to about 30 editors at publishing houses. And apparently several of them showed interest, but asked if I could make it this or that. Could she make it prescriptive? And she said no. And then we got one great offer from somebody who got it, who got the idea, who was on board with the idea and loved the writing and loved the voice and wanted me to write the book that I want to write. And so I went with her offer.
That's fantastic. It sounds like you ended up with an amazing agent as well, because you've retained control over your book, which is such a cool thing. So congratulations. I can't wait. I can't wait to read this book. I already know it's going to be hilarious. And
thank you.
And so, I'm really excited. Where can we get on the pre-order list for this book? I am aware there is a thing that we can click and get to know when it's released.
I'm so glad. Thank you. You cut out a little bit. You said you are on the pre-order list, right? I am on the pre-order list. Yeah. So can you tell my listeners where they can get on your pre-order list? Oh, you know what? I'm going to have to give you a link because I don't even know the link address for that.
That is cool. Yeah. Drop me an email and I will put that in the show notes.
For sure. Yeah. It'll be somewhere. You know what? I should put it up like front and center on talkingshrimp.com. Like in the what's hot tab or something. Never too early to start collecting that interest list. And I have a book coming out, so I should be doing that pronto, actually.
Yeah, and I know that people will be. Well, I know that certainly people in my world will be interested in your, in the whole writing process, and if you're going to be sharing snippets from what you're doing and how you're doing it. I know that I'm certainly going to be interested in that because it's I'm the indie world rather than the trad world, so I'm super interested in how this process works for the traditional published world. So yeah, get it up there and I'll send people to it. But yeah, that's very exciting. Okay, so like I said, I could talk to you all day. I'm sure you have many things to do. But where can we find out more about you?
Well, please come over to talkingshrimp.com And there are freebies there you can sign up for, but I make it pretty inescapable to sign up for my email list. I think that your listeners will probably just want to sign up for the emails themselves. I don't know if they're interested in copywriting or email writing or subject lines, but sign up for the emails themselves and you will get a taste of my writing in your inbox several times a week.
Yeah.
And
perfect.
Yes. And if you're on Instagram, please come find me there. I am Talking Shrimp NYC, not just Talking Shrimp because that was taken. So Talking Shrimp NYC is where to come find me there.
Super. And yeah, my listeners will most certainly be interested in the copywriting side of things. And I'm always telling people to go have a look at your About Page Builder because it's such a useful product.
Oh, thank you.
And the 60-minute makers, they're just so digestible. They're short and they're sweet and they're simple and it's great. It's just like how to do this thing, bam. So yeah, it's like, yeah, go to Laura's website, go to talkingshrimp.com and sign up for her emails because they're great, and have a look at her products as well. Okay, thank you, Laura. One more thing before I let you go. If you could leave the listeners with just one thing about, what could they do to become better writers, what would you tell them?
I would say write in volume, be prolific. It pays to be prolific in so many ways. For one, if you are putting your stuff out there, it keeps you top of mind. If you're emailing or posting or any of that, it keeps you top of mind to have some sort of, to be hitting publish on something frequently. But also the more you write, the more you write, the more you create, the more you create. So writing, waiting for inspiration never works.
Yeah.
Writing is what creates inspiration. So write before you're inspired and you will become inspired. And that is my most important tip and most important lesson that I've learned.
Thank you so much for that. That I 100% agree. I'm so glad you said that because if people don't listen to me, maybe they will listen to you and that will be brilliant. This has been so cool. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute delight talking to you. I'm going to have to do it again at some point, I hope, when a bit nearer to the time when your book comes out, because I'm absolutely going to want to talk to you about that.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Yeah. Best of luck with the whole process. Again, thanks so much. Next week, Joe will be back with us. We will be talking about the hidden benefits of writing a book, things that maybe you haven't thought about. Check out the show notes for links to Laura's website and also to my special offer for joining the Team Moxie Power Hours, which will get you writing every single day. So watch this space and we'll be back next week. Thanks very much.
Thanks for listening. You can find links and show notes on the website at moxiebooks.co.uk/podcast, where you can also sign up for the best daily emails in the multiverse and find loads of free resources to help you write your book. We'll be back the same time next week with more tales from the book writing trenches and the latest on what the tiny sheeps have been up to.